all of the encryptions are being rerouted. How about that? Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jason Tucker, and this is WP Watercooler, episode number 333. Today's topic is conflicts of interest with WordPress, or WordCamps and WordPress Meetup organizers.
Oh, I didn't know
Let's
that was
go around the room and get everyone introduced. But before we get started, I want to let you know that this particular episode of WP Watercooler is sponsored by ServerPress, makers of desktop server. Feel free to go over to their website over at serverpress.com, where you can learn how you can do 3 free local websites on your computer there and get those all figured out and then get them deployed out to your web host. So go check that out over at serverpress.com. All right, let's get everyone introduced. Let's see here. Let's go with Jonathan. How about you, Jonathan? Tell us about yourself.
Jonathan Wold. I live in beautiful northern Idaho, and I love talking about WordPress.
Awesome. Good to have you on.
At the tip. Right at the tip.
Hey, Say, how about you? Tell us about yourself.
Ahead of the Steve. Hey, I'm Say Reed. I make WordPress, teach WordPress, preach WordPress at Say Reed Media on all the things. And I'm a co-organizer of WordCamp Long Beach, happening sometime in October 5th and 6th. That's when. I knew it. I knew that.
Good to have you on. How about you, Jennifer? Tell us about yourself.
I'm Jennifer Bourne. I own Bourne Creative, and I run a course called Profitable Project Plan over at jenniferbourne.com.
Awesome. Steve, what about you?
I am Steve Zink. I'm the founder of Zeek Interactive. I run the OC WordPress Meetup. Hey, Say, have speakers been announced yet for WordCamp Long Beach?
Nope.
Okay.
You might want to get on that. How about you, Ross?
Hello, this is Ross Kyle here in Whittier, California, and I'm also the co-organizer of the Whittier WordPress Meetup with Jason. Wait, the other way. Okay, there you go. And I have a question for Say Reed. Are tickets available for the meetup? Or for
tickets are available now. If you buy before September 11th, you will get a shirt, because we are not purchasing extra shirts in an effort to be sustainable or more sustainable.
Nice.
So buy your tickets now.
I'm going to do that today.
Be announced before the t-shirt deadline. So
cool.
Fear not.
I'm going to
sometime in the next 6 days.
Yeah, basically
5 days.
I've got a lot going on.
Whoa! Look at the time.
And I'm Jason. You can find me over at Jason Tucker on Twitter. My website is jasontucker.blog. I do this show as well as another show called WP Blab. We've talked about some interesting topics these last couple episodes, and I'd love for you to go take a look at them. So go over to WPwatercooler.com/WP Blab, where you could find those shows over there. All right, so we have a little bit of a heavy topic here with conflicts of interest, and I thought we would bring that up. And one of the
delicate is what I would call this one.
Yeah. And so like I was telling Jennifer before we started this episode, is that she had a tweet that she sent out, and it kind of struck me a little bit as this whole idea of like, there's an interesting conversation happening about conflicts of interest with WordPress and WordPress Meetup organizers. And then she provided a link that goes to make.wordpress.org. And I've been trying to figure out, like, does this affect me in any way? Does this affect any of us in any way?
And who cares?
Yeah, and this is and should this affect you, and should this even stop you from getting involved in any volunteering of any sort within the WordPress community? If you're if you have so many things going on, should you reevaluate the things that you're doing, and how should you kind of navigate that?
Mm-hmm. To be clear, everyone should always reevaluate what they're doing and how much.
That is true.
Just blanket across the board.
So I'll have in the show notes some links that go over to that particular make.wordpress posting, where they talk about discussion how to handle conflict of interest situations. So you can go take a look at that.
That post was more about the deputies and things like that, but I saw that post come through into my inbox, and I was already kind of thinking about some of these things, and that's what prompted that tweet, is that, we do have to reevaluate our volunteerism and the effort that we're putting in and where that effort is. And as our business changes, and as our roles change, and as our lives change, the amount you're able to give and what your fit is and all of those things are things you do have to think about.
Yeah.
It's also I learned a new acronym yesterday that someone came up to me and asked me this, and I said this new acronym. I was like, I've never heard that before, which is rare because I hear a lot of acronyms and I love them. WIFM. You guys heard that one?
No.
What's in it for me?
There you go. See, because I never asked that question because problems. But like, I was like, oh, that's an interesting one. But it totally relates to this topic because, we're, as WordPress people, we're all giving back. We love this community. And then we don't always ask that question, what's in it for me? Because we're always, what's in it for us is, giving back and supporting our community and networking and meeting new people. But then there also becomes sometimes a limit where it's like, in your case, I believe, Jennifer, is that like you feel restricted by that and can't even, celebrate what you're doing because of what you're doing and how much you're giving. So it like puts this restriction on you. So what was the dilemma? Facing?
I don't think it has anything to do with the amount you're giving, right? So some of this to give some context is we've been, Brian and I have been organizing the Sacramento WordPress Meetup for 6 years, which is a long time, but we are an official WordPress Meetup, which means we are governed by WordPress community support. They pay for our meeting space every month. So we are governed by all of the things that happen with that, and they help make our meetup happen, which is great. But in those 6 years, our meetup has kind of changed. Like in the first several years, lots of our local friends and people that we knew, like there was a dinner before, and people we would meet up and we'd talk, and we'd go, and there was lots of networking and talking, and people were interacting, and it was fun, right? And over the years, people have stopped coming, or they've gotten busy or changed jobs or left things, and nobody goes to dinner anymore. Like the meetup itself has changed. And I look at, if I'm going to dedicate my time towards something that's not spending time with my family and my kids and doing fun things, right? It either has to move my business forward, or it has to bring some kind of joy and inspiration and fun into my life. And so I've kind of been at this crossroads with our meetup community, in that every month we're putting forth all the effort to put it on, but we can't even get somebody to stand up for 5 minutes and tell us about a plugin that they like. Like it's pulling teeth, and it's so much work to get anybody to help out. We're holding the 5th WordCamp Sacramento on the 21st and 22nd of this month, which we're really, really excited about. But there isn't a big organizing committee. We are having to carry, a tiny little group of people are having to carry the entire event because the community wants to show up, but they don't want to get involved or volunteer or give back. So we have this tiny little organizing committee that's shouldering everything, and getting people to volunteer has been so hard. I finally reached out to Natalie and I'm like, you volunteer every year. You're part of FBLA, like Future Business Leaders of America. I need volunteers. You need community service to graduate. We have 8 Whitney High School volunteers who are working the whole weekend, and they are our volunteers for WordCamp Sacramento. But so it's this greater kind of like, I'd already kind of been feeling like this, like our meetup is kind of in this flux of, we get a large number, 30 to 50 people, or sometimes up to 60 or 70 every meetup.
Wow.
But it's a lot of work to shoulder that on your own. And then our business has changed this year. Like most people know that, like Brian left Born Creative and went to go work at 10up this year. So I'm back working on my own and shouldering all of Born Creative by myself, which has been interesting. So that also allowed me to do some things I didn't have capacity to do before, like host a 3-day workshop on content marketing called Content Camp. That's happening in less than 2 weeks, September 17th through the 19th. So it's 3 days.
A busy month.
September. Holy crap. I don't even
so the Content Camp is the 17th, 18th, and 19th. The speaker dinner is the 20th for WordCamp, and WordCamp's 21st and 22nd. Because we have friends that are coming in from out of town that are coming in and going to both. right? They're doing content for 3
Wow.
days and then WordCamp for 2 days and going home. But I figured if September's already busy, we're going to throw one more thing in there. But I have this amazing event that I'm planning and running that's all dedicated to planning out content for blog posts and all of these things that would help site owners. But there was this weird thing about, I have this entire community of people, like our meetup's got like 1,600 people in it that we've curated over 6 years that I can't email. Right?
There's like 4% that are interested in even coming anymore, right?
Right, like that I can't email, that I can't reach out to or contact on behalf of anything that I'm doing, right? That I can't do. And because Brian and I are the faces, the primary faces of the WordPress meetup, like we have another organizer too, but like people just assume like Sacramento WordPress, it's Brian and Jen. And it's just, we try to not have it be that way, but it is.
It is.
So they come for WordPress. They come for all of that. They come because it's free. It's weird if I'm like, hi, thanks for coming to the WordPress meetup. Let me stand up and now tell you about this thing I'm doing for profit. Like, that's weird. And that's frowned upon. Like, that's not right. Right? You can't use your volunteer platform to promote your own stuff. It's why there's no sales at work, like sales from the stage at WordCamps. It's why there's none of those things, right? Because that's
those are the conflicts.
That's not how we do things.
That's literally why we started this thing.
I know, right?
So that we could self-promote. We could talk about the things that we're interested in. We could talk about the stuff that is outside of that scope, and that we're able to, talk about those things.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not just, so that's a conflict of interest, or more potentially falls under the conflict of interest. But the interesting thing is it's really a conflict in just operations, right? Because the people who are coming to that camp and who view you as this leader in the community, they want to know about what you're doing. They'd be interested in the fact that you're doing it. And it's not like you'd be like, oh, you have to do this, or doing any sort of hard sell. But the fact that you can't, or you at least feel that you can't, or the guidelines are not clear in allowing you to, that you can't even mention that and say, hey, I'm doing this thing, FYI, that's a conflict in even just, like I said, in operations, because those people are like, oh, Jen's doing something really interesting. That might be something that's interesting to my clients or interesting to me. And
but
so
why isn't she talking about it?
Well, when I'm networking, like when I network one-on-one with people, or I'm talking with people at the event and it's like, hey, what's going on with you? Like, what's new with you? What's been going on the last month? I have no problem sharing like what I'm up to, right? But it's that whole point of, it's the whole point of reevaluating how much time are you investing in building a whole community where the only time you can really talk about what you're doing is in those one-on-one little networking pieces, right? Like, how much effort do you put into building a community and an email list and all of those things that, like, I can't email about Content Camp. That's crossing, to me, that's crossing a line. Now, let me be super clear. No one has reached out and said, you can't do this. I don't think there's a written rule that says you can't do this. From an integrity perspective, I view that as messed up, right?
Yeah.
True. Here's how I would do it. I would do a talk at your meetup about how you built the Content Camp site.
Oh.
Right, in terms of WordPress, right? If you used a page builder, talk about the tricks you used with the page builder. If you had a certain plugin you used, talk about that. If you're doing marketing for it, talk about that. So put it in terms of WordPress and some sort of use of WordPress or plugin or theme, right? And
Not
then it fits.
good at going around the rules or anything.
Look,
Hashtag loophole.
And frankly, here's how I feel about the rules. I'm volunteering my time.
Right, exactly.
Frankly, I'm gonna do what I want. And if they don't like it, they can find somebody else.
Well, and I mean, a lot of this is really complaint based, right? So it's like, it's not unless you are egregiously abusing your position that or someone is complaining to, the foundation that or the community people or whoever, whatever spider connector thing that's on. But like, unless someone's complaining, they're not policing the content or whatnot. So, I mean, this also contributes to the problem that you started talking about in the very beginning, which is that people won't step up, right? But if they won't step up because they see that they can't, they're like, what am I going to get out of that? Like, someone else is already doing the work and I can't promote myself in a certain way. So then what does become the incentive for people who are leaders and who are successful business owners and who have things that they're doing that are, interesting to the audience? Like, what is the incentive there? It actually becomes a disincentive to do that work. So it's basically like, while the conflict of interest keeps things from becoming a big sales pitch, which we all think is good and we all like that, at the same time, this kind of weird non-defined space also keeps people from stepping up and keeps them from volunteering and keeps them from filling that gap. And then so, it's like rock in a hard place.
Yeah. Now you're in kind of a different, what you're talking about in Content Camp is a different business than I'm in, right? I'm mainly in the services business, right? So I've never gotten up.
This was never an issue when it was Born Creative.
Totally. I've never gotten up at a meetup or a WordCamp. I've never gotten up and said, here's why you should hire Zeke, right?
Right.
But I do talk about, and I give business tips on how to run an agency, right? And so there is a fine line between, giving advice and promoting myself, because while giving that advice, I am obviously coming across as the expert in my field, right? So the thought process there, I think, is somebody, if they need my services, would come hire me. Although I've never said you should come hire Zeke.
To that end, though, if you did a one-day business thing, like some sort of like business conference for agencies or consultants, people would be all over that, and you have demonstrated your value. So having
could that be considered a conflict of interest?
That's what I'm saying. Would that be a conflict of interest? Or these supporting things that are part of what makes you a leader in the WordPress community?
I think hosting it isn't the conflict of interest. It's whether you use your position as an organizer to further your for-profit measures.
Yeah.
Now,
that's a conflict of interest.
People are following you on Twitter because they meet you there, and if they're reading your blog posts because they meet you there, and if you're, do you consider signing up for your newsletter or saying, hey, I have new stuff going on, I'd love to tell you about it, so give me your business card and I'll put you on my newsletter? Like, do you view that as a conflict of interest? That's more like an opting in kind of deal.
Ross has something to say.
So let me give you some of my opinions on this. So Jason and I run a meetup right here in my office. Oh, is that a promotion? I don't know. But people, like, they know I run a website business, a WordPress business, and they ask me all kinds of questions. How do you get new customers? What do you use? What do you use as a page builder? So they ask me for advice all the time. They ask Jason for advice all the time, and we just give out all our free information. But we're just not saying, hey, hire me. Here's my business cards. The only time
that's not a conflict of interest.
Right. So I give them a business card here. Oops, is that a conflict? And so at the end of the meetup, they'll say, hey, Russ, can I get your business card? I don't go around and say, here's my business card and just throw them out like frisbees. They'll say, can I get your business card? I have a website problem. Can I call you tomorrow or whatever? But I don't voluntarily
think anybody's saying, though, that networking and sharing tips and things like that is conflict of interest.
Right. That's what we're doing. Right. But if you just go and say, hey, I'm here, I'm Ross Guile, and I'm here and I design these great websites. You should check out all my websites and hire me. We're not doing that at all. I think if you do that, there's no conflict at all here.
And if anything, and I think, Ross, you'd share this, at my meetup, I do the opposite. I'm promoting all the other businesses that are in the room, right? I'm letting everybody else that's there promote themselves, and I'm acting as their cheerleader, right? You should hire these people because they're great at certain things.
We do that also.
Yeah,
and I've seen Steve say,
we're not just saying hire Jason. We let them ask, and we give everybody a chance to. We give everybody a chance to promote themselves. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jason, what have you seen me say? I'm curious.
At the end.
Right.
Jason, you've seen me say something and then you didn't.
No, I've seen Steve tell people, don't hire me. You should go hire this person because the type of work that you're asking me to do doesn't align with the the things that I'm interested in doing as a business owner. It's like your site's maybe too small, maybe there's too much this, maybe there's too much that, or maybe it's just it's not big enough. That's fine.
This site,
it's okay.
This site is Donald Duck compared to what we do.
So yeah, I mean, promoting other people is definitely something that happens at all of our meetups.
Absolutely.
I think really it's the gray area that we're in here that is actually what the problem is, because there's this post about conflicts of interest and how to handle them or whatever, but there really aren't any clear rules. It is vague, and that's a real problem in a lot of the in a lot of these WordPress community things. There's instances that have happened in our organizing committee, and I know that this has happened on other WordCamp organizing committees where there may be personnel issues with people in the camp, and it's like, who's responsible for that? Who's responsible for taking care of those issues, or stepping in and handling those issues? Or is the foundation or the community team, I don't know, what is it, the community team? What do they call themselves? The people who, it's not the foundation, it's kind of the foundation. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Anybody know what they are? Anyway.
No,
it's
a gray area.
This is part of the problem, right? We don't even know which people are the people who are, kind of in charge of enforcing this. We don't know what those clear rules are. We don't know what the consequences would be. And so it falls upon, people who've been dedicating all this time to it to just make this call and feel awkward or feel like they can't do something that, they might, their whole audience might be interested in hearing about, and they, should be able to say, but because of these weird gray rules and non-clarity on the situation, they're self-censoring, and that limits what's happening within the community and also causes a lot of stress. And then people are like, I don't want to deal with this stress. This is too much to think about. This is too difficult. I have to go now.
It's one of those use your better judgments.
I got a couple of thoughts on this. First, part of what makes this whole thing difficult is that it often, motive is often what's at the heart of it. And how can we judge each other's motives?
Totally.
That becomes very difficult, because it's like, I actually like Steve's example a lot. Like, you could, with completely pure motives, go through and use your own business as an example. Like, you're showing, here's how we built this thing, right? You could also go too far with something like that. So it's like,
we have had that happen with speakers that use their own stuff, and we're like, this is just sales, and it's so.
We've had it happen at WordCamp.
It's so painful.
So now here's the tricky thing about this is that, right now, I mean, part of what makes this all work, there's this tension with vagueness, because part of what makes it work is that we do leave a lot up to discretion, and ultimately a lot of it's about motive. And to Jennifer's point, part of the frustrating thing is when there's just not enough people stepping up and bringing their best to it, right? Where they're like, well, I don't want to serve here. I'm going to let others do it. And then that puts a lot more burden on those who are. But yeah, this whole category of conflict of interest, which I think it's also worth defining, like Andrea in the .org chat or the discussion pointed out. Well, let's first be clear on what this is. Conflict of interest are where, interests are colliding with each other, right? Mm-hmm. Where my interest in the project succeeding or the health of my local community is colliding with my own interests. And I would point out that mentioning your business is not it's not an inherent conflict of interest.
Right.
Right. Like, it can actually be, to not mention it could be detrimental. Right. Can you imagine someone coming to a local meetup and they're looking for help, and people are afraid to mention that?
But I don't think people are afraid to mention their business. I don't think that's the thing, right? Nobody has a problem. Most people, you don't have a problem when you're networking, when you're talking to people, when you're doing whatever, to talk about what you do, to answer questions, to give advice. That's why we're all there. I mean, ultimately, it's a networking event, right? That's why people are there. The conflict of interest comes in when your position with organizing a meetup or organizing, a WordCamp or volunteering is butting heads with something that you're doing for profit, something that you're doing that is separate, where you're using your platform to further a personal agenda. right? Using your platform to selectively choose speakers, to promote your own for-profit, ventures, to do any of those things. Now, can you talk about them when you're networking? Sure. Can you stand in front of the room and use your position as an organizer to further that? No. Right?
Yeah.
I think you would probably get asked to not be an organizer.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, especially if you are under the umbrella of the community, if you're an official WordPress meetup, right? And you're under that umbrella, whether it's written or not, there's a line.
And I think it was Say that mentioned this earlier, right? It's always going to come down to the level of complaints that are happening within that local community. So each community is going to each region is going to be different, right? Right. What you described about Sacramento is way different than what we experience at our meetup in Orange County. And so every region is going to be a little bit different. And so those conflicts or those lines are going to be interpreted differently by the community itself, right? And so, within the community, there's always going to be discussion and back channeling and all kinds of talk. And there could be even motives to not have that person organize, right? Because of some sort of mutiny in the community, which has happened in certain regions, right? Yeah. And so even things that are done with the best intentions can be misinterpreted. So every region is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, and I think that is something that's unique to our position, is that, like, when in Twitter, when I had tweeted that and there was conversation going back and forth, Raquel had jumped in about, here's what we do in Phoenix, and we have this whole organizing team, so we will shift kind of responsibilities, or we'll do these things. And I'm like, right, I would love to have a team.
Yeah.
Like, dynamics here are different. We've tried to ask. We tell people, you can organize your own meetup. Like, you can choose, you can plan one, you can do it, you can get involved. Do you want to speak? Do you want to volunteer? Do you want to do anything? We'll do everything for you. I'll make your slides for you. I don't even care.
We had the opposite, where people would go and ask Steve if it was okay to start a meetup. Do you remember that, Steve?
I would get asked that all the time. I'd be like, yes, please.
Yes, please.
Like, they'd say, listen, I'm thinking of starting a little, WordPress meetup within my region. I don't want to step on your toes. I'd be like, no, do it. And as a matter of fact, I'll put you under our umbrella. Like, I will do whatever you need.
Yeah.
Whatever you need.
Same. We have people that'll come up and be like, I really think that we should have an advanced developers meetup once a month too. And I'm like, you should totally organize that.
Right.
You're like, no.
Steve does that with another meetup, programmers thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brandon and Jeff run that meetup all on their own. It's just under the same umbrella. Sarah runs the design meetup.
I love it.
And so, yeah.
It's great.
It's great.
It's great.
When I was popping out, I don't know why I popped out, computer just shut down. But you were talking, I wanted to say, we're talking about the conflict of interest, with the financial actual conflict of interest. I just wanted to mention, this is why the community gets upset some of the time when automaticians or people who are paid, they're sponsored people who are part of the community, whether it's for, Entre Capital or Automatic or, even GoDaddy or Bluehost, and they're there representing and participating in the community, but, maybe they're representing the interest of their employer, maybe they aren't. And people see that gray area and, aren't sure what to make of that. And that actually causes a lot of conflict in the community as well. So, we have a minute left. So I just thought I'd toss that.
Personally, I haven't seen any conflicts of interest from that realm, like at a meetup or a WordCamp. So yeah. I don't know about anything greater than that, because that's where my involvement stops, at the meetup and the WordCamp.
But I guess that's more like the, decision-making level of, code and core and that sort of thing. But I think it's the same community concept, right? Like, it's the same, this is the community, and those same conflict of interest policies would extend to participating in the community at that level also.
I think all of us knows that there's no conflict there, but some people on the outside goes, oh, look at these people are advertising there at WordCamp and meetups. And they may think it's a conflict there. It's just a matter of how they package it, I guess. right?
Yeah, the way that they're
you pay to be a
interpreting it.
sponsor and show up, then you get to do it. So, I mean,
Right.
Well, I mean, there isn't actual, you can't do the pay for speaking slots though. So that's definitely a line. Although a lot of the people who do apply for those things are the same people who are being paid to do that in the community.
So don't cash my check.
And look at the time. Look at the time. All right. Well, I want to say thank you very much for all of you guys for coming and hanging out with us and talking about conflicts of interest. Very interesting for us to hear talk about this, but thank you for coming on and being able to discuss this. I really appreciate it. You can go over to our website at WPwatercooler.com and you can learn how you can subscribe to our content. Go to WPwatercooler.com/subscribe. And you can go take a look at that over there. We're also available as an audio podcast. And one of the things I asked last week or on the last episode of WP Blab was, if you're listening to us as a podcast, leave us a review. We would appreciate that. Because last episode, we talked about reviews on websites. And so we kind of use that as our way of tying it all in. So feel free to go do that. Talk to y'all later. You have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.